get you out of my mind.
Hello ladies, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Zizi, and if you are a returning subscriber and girl, I acknowledge you. So in today's video, I'm going to be discussing some of the side hustles which I had when I was a student, and I know that some of my audience is like slightly younger and is still in university, so I just wanted to make this video particularly for them, as I promised. I also did see that you guys really liked my side hustles for a 9-to-5 girl video. I think I have like close to 500 subscribers now, and yet that video had like close to 3,000 views. So for all of you guys that watched the video, thank you. That liked the video, thank you. If you haven't caught that and you are a working girl, I'm gonna link it in the cards, but I do want to make this video specifically tailored for students. I'm going to first start off with side hustles that I personally did when I was in university, and then at the end I'm going to also kind of add on and speak to some side hustles that I didn't necessarily do, but I do have close friends who did those side hustles. Let's get into it. Okay, so the very first one, which is not so much a side hustle, but I do personally think that this is the best way for you to make money and to have money as a student, and that is for you to get yourself a scholarship or a bursary that is going to give you an allowance. And the reason why I think that this is the best way to make money as a student is because, one, once you have the scholarship or the bursary, you don't have to then actually put in that much hours besides just studying and fulfilling like the academic requirements of your scholarships or any other like extracurricular requirements on a year-to-year basis. But you are able to generate an income and have money coming into your bank account every single month without you having to spend 2, 3, sometimes even 6 hours a day outside of school working. When I was in university, for the majority of my undergrad, I was on the Alan Gray Orbis Foundation scholarship. This scholarship was absolutely amazing, and to be honest, this was the main way which I had income throughout my degree. When I was in my first year, for example, I lived off campus. I didn't get into Ray, so I lived off campus, and at the time my off-campus allowance used to be about 6,000 rand a month. So the foundation used to send me that amount of money every single month. From that 6,000 rand though, I do want to say that I did have to pay rent, but luckily I found like very cheap student accommodation where I shared a room with another girl, and I think I paid something like 3,000 rand a month for rent. So the rest of the 3K was really just sufficient for me to buy groceries and to buy my toiletries as an 18-year-old. And then eventually when I did move into res and then into self-catering res, my scholarship used to give me about 3,000 rand a month. And obviously because I was in self-catering res, I didn't have to pay rent because the foundation or the scholarship actually paid my boarding fees. Basically from the 3,000 rand that they gave me, I just had to feed myself, I had to buy my toiletries. And then in addition to them giving me money to cover my living expenses, they also provided 5,000 or 6,000 rand at the beginning of the year for me to buy textbooks. So if you are in a situation where you really need extra money, especially if you come from a more underprivileged background like I did, I really recommend that you work very hard and apply for scholarships. Do your research, approach companies, and even speak to your financial aid office, and they can help you to actually find which companies you can apply to get funding. The second way which you can make money as a student, which is like my absolute favorite, and this is the way that I have made the most amount of money, and that is through tutoring. Guys, I tutored in university. In fact, I started tutoring when I was in high school, but I think when I went to university, I just kind of took it to a whole new level. In university, I tutored statistics, and for high school students, I tutored mathematics. So you know how like in addition to your lectures in varsity, you also have like your tutorials, and typically your tutors who kind of come in and teach you the content and answer your questions are like senior students in the university. I was one of those tutors. particularly for the statistics department at UCT. And how I actually landed the job is that when I was in my first year, I realized that the people who were tutoring us were actually students themselves. And then I spoke to them. I think I spoke to like an economics tutor of mine, and I literally just asked them, how do you guys get these jobs? And they said that, well, it differs from like department to department. You have to get like a good grade, and different departments have different requirements, and you basically apply to the department, and then they interview you. They get you to give like a mock lesson to just see whether or not you are actually able to teach, how you handle students, and then if you do well, you get the job, and the university pays you a salary. And then I tried to find out which kind of department in the university pays the most amount of money, because if I was going to invest my time into working while I was a student, I needed to get like the greatest buck for my time. And so I found out that the stats department was the highest paying department in the university, and I was like, I'm going to become a stats tutor. In order for you to become a tutor for statistics, you have to get a minimum of 80% for that particular course in order to tutor. And so I worked really hard. I wasn't an A student by any means in university, but I worked hard at this particular course because I knew that I wanted to make a coin out of it. So I ended up getting a distinction. I applied to the stats department, and literally the following year, in my second year, I was a tutor. And tutoring for the stats department, I think I earned about $2 grand a month, and I typically worked about 5 to 6 hours a week. I had 3 tutorial groups that I saw once a week each, and then there was obviously the 2 hours that I needed to spend every single week actually preparing for my tats. And I really loved it. Like, I genuinely loved tutoring, and maybe actually I'm just a person who loves to teach. And then in my third year, I then also got a job also tutoring stats, but this time I was tutoring stats both for the university, and I tutored privately. And I think then my hourly rate was like maybe 100 rand an hour. But guys, just remember, this was like back in 2013, 2014. In my school day, I'd set aside 3 hours that I would dedicate just for tutoring, and I did that Monday to Friday. That's 15 hours, so I would earn 1,500 rand a week, which turned out to be about 6K per month. I made really good money tutoring stats, especially privately. And then with tutoring high school maths, I didn't really enjoy this one so much because it required me to travel off campus and go to like these kids' homes, which was quite inconvenient for me, especially because I was doing this in between my own lectures and like my own tutorials. Another side hustle I had was that I worked as an assistant at student registration, particularly for the commerce faculty. So you know how at the beginning of every year, like literally thousands of students will flock the faculties to come and register for their degrees, both undergrad and postgrad. And the faculty staff would become really overwhelmed with that amount of workload in such a short period of time, and so they would hire students. So I actually was one of those students who registered other students. It was quite like an admin intensive job, and the hours were quite long, but the money was good. And another thing also was that it was a once-off piece of work. You would work for about a week or maybe 2 weeks at the beginning of the year, and that was it. Another side hustle that I had in university was that I took notes and minutes in Parliament. So when I was, I think, in my third and my fourth year of university, I worked for an organization called the Parliamentary Monitoring Group. And this is basically a non-government organization that goes into Parliament, takes minutes of parliamentary proceedings and parliamentary committee meetings, and then publishes the minutes of those meetings for the general public. So I got this job, and what would basically happen is that whenever there was a committee meeting in Parliament, the monitoring group would call me up and let me know that on a Tuesday between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. there's a committee meeting. The Committee for Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries is meeting to discuss these certain items, and they provide me with the agenda, and I basically had to arrive at Parliament with a laptop, and basically just sit in the meeting, sit at the back of the meeting, record the actual meeting, and also take minutes. I then go home and listen to the audio recording of those meetings, and then I would try and like fill in the gaps that I might have missed in my actual minutes, and then I'd compile those minutes, email them over to the parliamentary monitoring group. They would review them and then post them on their website. I really did love that job, and I learned quite a lot about what actually goes on in these parliament committees. And I also just think it was a great learning opportunity for me. The money was decent, not as great as tutoring money was, but it was also another way that I made money. The downside of it though was that it did require me to kind of travel outside of campus and go all the way to town. So I had to like take a taxi or take a bus to go to town to attend these meetings, and then sometimes these meetings would kind of end in the evening, and you know, as a young girl, it wasn't safe for me to like be outside by myself at night using public transportation. And the fifth side hustle that I did in university was that I worked as a waitress, and this is a side hustle that I did all the way through high school and well into university. As soon as I was legally able to work, I was waitressing. This type of side hustle though, when you are in university especially, in fact even high school as well, is something that you can mainly do when you are on holiday. It is still possible for you to work as a waitress even throughout like the year when you have classes. You just have to like negotiate your hours well with your manager. There's certain sacrifices that you'll have to make, where for example if you work shifts, for example, and they put you on a shift, those shifts could potentially clash with your lectures. Hence I don't really recommend this one unless it's like on vacation, like during your vacation time in June and December. You can go get temporary waitressing jobs. So you can just approach a restaurant and ask for a job, or you can go and work in a hotel as a waitress, or you can work for kind of like an outsourcing company where you are working and attached to this particular company who has clients, right? So for example, let's say one of their clients is the City ICC. So if there's an event going on at the City ICC, you would then be deployed by the company you work for to go and waitress for that particular event. That third option though, I really think is like the worst paying one. I remember when I worked that way, when I worked for like an outsourcing company, the company I worked for really treated the staff like awfully, to a point where I actually just ended up quitting the job. And their level of awfulness got to a point where I really felt like the company was even putting us in danger. But that's a story for another day. The money really wasn't great. I think I used to get paid something like 13 Rand an hour or 12 Rand an hour. I don't even know if that's actually even above minimum wage. But I guess this was like back in 2013, 2014. So maybe that was within minimum wage back then. And then the sixth side hustle that I had, which is something I also did mainly during like my school holiday or my vacation, was that I worked as a debt collector. So I was that person who was phoning you and asking you, when are you going to pay your Woolies account and your Edgar's account? So this job you can only really do also during the holidays, because it is a full-time job. So you do work like 40 to 45 hours a week, like a full 8.5-hour day. I didn't really like that environment, if I'm quite honest. And it's not an environment I'd want to go back to again, but nonetheless, like, it did help me to make a little bit of income. And although it was like a full-time job, I think I used to earn about 2K or maybe 2,500 at the most for like working 45 hours a week every single week, Monday to Friday, and then some Saturdays earning 2,000, And then moving on to the side hustles which my friends did. So these are not side hustles that I personally did, but my friends did while we were in university. And the first one is a library assistant or a library receptionist. So you see the person that works at like the university library, not the librarian, I guess you could say a librarian assistant, but they would basically like be the people that stand at the tills where you check out a book, and they would scan your student card and scan your book and then put a stamp on it. So yeah, that was a side hustle that one of my friends had. She worked as a library assistant. Another job, which in fact quite a few of my friends did, but I never did, and in fact my boyfriend did this, and this is how this is how him and I met. And this side hustle is being an orientation leader. So you know, when like first years join the university, there's like a group of older students, like third year, fourth year, even master's students, who basically like take them on tours around campus, introduce them to like the systems of the universities and so on. They orientate them into the university. Yeah, a few of my friends did this job. My boyfriend was an orientation leader. He was my orientation leader when I was in my first year. He was a fourth year student and I was doing first year, and that's how we met, because he was my orientation leader. And look at us now. But yeah, that's definitely a viable side hustle. I do want to say though that it's a once-off type of job as well. It's something that you do only at the beginning of the year, and then you don't really have it throughout the course of the year, unless of course you are an orientation leader for like semester abroad students, of which in that case you'll have the job in Jan, and then again at the beginning of the new semester in July, when new semester abroad students come, and you are their orientation leader. This is something that you would need to apply for the year prior to the year like where you're gonna be an orientation leader. So it does require you to be proactive and to actually find out the information for your particular institution. And then the third one, which quite a few of my friends also did, was being a sub-warden or a warden's assistant in a university residence. So a sub-warden is basically the person that acts like the deputy warden in some sense, where they are like the enforcers of rules in residences. They are the ones whom you go and knock on their door if you've locked yourself out. They are the ones who approve when you want to have your boyfriend come over. They are the ones who approve when you want to have some of your friends, your female friends, sleep over at res. And they're typically more senior students in the residence. My friends who were sub-wardens earned anywhere between 2,000 and 4,000 rand a month every single month while they were a sub-warden, and typically a person would be a sub-warden for 1 to 2 years. Another one as well is being a receptionist in a residence. In fact, I think my friend Unamhla, she actually did this in varsity, and this is basically where you work at the reception area of the residence that you live in. And you basically sign in guests, you receive people's deliveries and parcels. The other nice thing about it is that you could actually sit behind the receptionist's desk and be able to just do your schoolwork, you know. So you could study while you're working a 2-hour shift. You could be on the computer doing your assignments, submitting your assignments. So I don't feel that it really took away from your time that you needed in order to do your actual schoolwork. And then the last one, which some of my friends did, was working in promotions. I don't really have a lot of insight on this, especially because it was a very like off-campus type of job that people typically did in shopping malls. But I'm sure like Google is our friend. So if you are interested in going to do promotions for companies like Vodacom or MTN, that's definitely something that you can do your research about and find out how to go about. But that's definitely a viable option for students. Many of my friends did that job. I didn't personally, but many of my friends did that job to earn an income, and they did it while they were still students. So that is it for this video, guys. I hope that you did find it somewhat valuable. If you enjoyed it, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and let me know in the comment section below if you liked the video, what other type of videos you would like to see. We are on the road to 500. Whoop whoop whoop. So I'm really excited about that, and I really just love making this content, but I do want to know what it is exactly that you guys want to see. So yeah, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe, please click the notification bell. Thanks so much for your time, guys. Bye.
I've been searching for this all my life. You're just my type. I've been looking for a boy who can treat me right.